right. Hi, welcome to Integral Leadership in Action, the Creative Writer Support Pod. Today we have William Koty, author of The 6 Dimensions of Purpose. So let's put our hands together and welcome William. I'm going to spotlight you. All right. What are you?
Yikes. So I'm going to, here, let me just share a presentation here so you know what's going on and what my intentions are. So the title today is The Integral Audience. Who are they? And more importantly, what do they know? So, because it's Cinco de Mayo, happy Cinco de Mayo, everyone.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
5/5/25. So here's my agenda. I'm going to a short positioning of this presentation, what the original reason for why I wanted to do this. Then I'm going to do a brief presentation about the space for integral writing. And I'd like to share an excerpt from a book that I'm currently working on called Integral Purpose. And I have a draft introduction that I thought I would go through, which basically positions the entire book. And in it, I'm trying to kind of show what the audience should be expecting and how much integral is a part of that. And I'd like to get your feedback on that. And then break for a general discussion. Sound good? Okay. Well, so here's my my positioning for the presentation. So who is my audience? This is a crucial question every writer must ask themselves. It doesn't matter what you write, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, or punditry. Understanding the reader is key to the writing process. But how can you know for certain who the readers are going to be? What are they going to expect, want, and need from your writing? These questions are of particular significance when your writing concerns integral theory, a niche philosophy with a diverse global following. While every writer would like to have a large, expansive audience, a bestseller, if you will, when writing about integral theory, is your relationship by necessity and by default niche? To what extent do you refer to integral ideas in your writing? How much integral understanding is needed for the reader to make sense of what you write? The issue isn't just between integralists and non-integralist readers, but between integralists who may have only a surface understanding of integral theory and those who have a deeply embodied experience, a lived experience, of being integral. These are the issues that this author faces as he writes a book about integral purpose. I hope for feedback and advice from ILiA community on how best to proceed. In my presentation, I'll read a draft introduction to my new book, Integral Purpose, that confronts the issue of how much, how far, and how deep integral theory needs to be embedded in my writing. Okay. So, comments.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the intention of this, why I wanted to do this. So, just briefly, the writing space for integral. If you starting in the upper left quadrant, you have the writer's subjective experience and the reader's subjective experience. So the writer's knowledge of integral is key to my issue here. And what my intention is in writing this book for to be able to frame purpose in life from an integral perspective. And then, of course, the reader's subjective understanding of integral is front and center in my awareness. And what their intention is in reading the book in the first place. Is it because they're interested in integral, or are they interested in purpose, or are they interested in both? And how far that goes. On the upper right individual objective side, for me, it's the writing process. What is actually being written, how I'm going about it, the book design, the layout, etc. And the writer's objective, they're the process of reading, and of course the activities and the changes that are undertaken because of the book, like the exercises in the book and things like that. On the intersubjective side, it's the shared knowledge of integral theory that I have with the audience, and as well as how the community will be impacted by the book. Will integral purpose, become sort of a bigger part of the conversation in the whole integral space? And then finally, on the intra-objective side, what is the marketplace for integral products and the space for learning and sharing about integral, and how my writings will affect that communal space.
William, before you go on, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I just ask, in the upper right, you've got writer's objective and writer's objective. Should the second one be the reader's, or is it both?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
okay. I just want to check that before you went on. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So, it's just a very, quick sort of synopsis of the writing space for integral here and what I'm trying to look at. The other thing is the levels of development and how they are going to come in from especially the reader standpoint. Well, how am I as a writer going to deal with the levels of development for the readers, and how the reader is going to react to what I write depending on their level of development? And I'm just thinking of, so that's one of the issues, but then also market size, who's the audience here? And at the bottom, from infrared to red warrior, I expect no one to read this book.
Yeah.
From amber into lower orange, it's probably a tiny market. Upper orange into green, it's a bigger market, I suppose. And then up into teal and turquoise, it's a small market again, because there's not a whole lot of people up in that space. I think that the majority, even people who are aware of integral and read about integral, I think a lot of them are in the higher orange and green space mostly, and pushing into teal. So where in there do I need to position integral purpose, the philosophy behind purpose, from an integral perspective? So that's one of my issues.
Yeah.
So what I would like to do is to read an excerpt from my book, from the introduction, if that's okay with you. And that would be right here. So you can't see this, I don't believe. You can only see me talking. So here's my introduction. It's a draft introduction, of course. In many ways, I'm just getting started writing the book, laying it out, etc. But I try to get the introduction down so I really kind of have a real understanding of where I'm going. So I will simply read this. Introduction: purposeful evolution and the story of your life. If the world is made of stories, the story of why you're here is the most amazing story of all. That's because it's your story. It's the story you tell about yourself to yourself. It's the story that shapes who you are, your self-identity, and that you share with the world. But most importantly, except on the bad days, it's the story that lights you up on the inside, that gets you out of bed in the morning, that has you in action with a smile on your face. The story you tell yourself outlines the texture of your life. It might be a life that needs to be suffered through, or a life well played, or a hero's journey. Whatever the case, whether your story is majestic or mediocre, triumphant or disappointing, or somewhere in between, it is not something that is given to you by your genetics, though that is part of it. It is not given to you by your parents and family, though that is part of it. It is not given to you by religious and political institutions, though that is also part of it. And it's not given to you by your peer groups, the culture in which you were raised, or the past 50,000 years of human history, though that is part of it too. No, it's none of those, but all of those, all wrapped up inside of you in a tangled and entwined story. It is a story given expression through you. What is that story? It's the story about who you are as a conscious, self-aware human being, about where you came from and the direction in life in which you're headed. It's a dynamic story. It has destiny written all over it. Not destiny because it's predetermined by family, society, or God, but destiny because it has momentum. It has strength and intensity. It's like a boulder rolling down a hill or a mountain stream cascading to the valley. It's your life unfolding as you engage the world around you. It is the promise of a new day and your willingness to show up despite whatever inner and outer turmoil you currently face. It's your belief that today will bring greater sustenance and more harmony to yourself and your world. Collectively, all your new days reveal the long-term directions in which your life is headed, your purpose in life. Understanding those long-term directions is what purpose in life is all about. This book is a chance for you to clarify those directions and change them if necessary. Why? So you can reap the rewards of living a more purposeful, more self-directed, more self-authored life. You always have two essential choices. You can sit back and be a witness to your life as it passes by, or you can be an active participant and shape its flow. This book is about actively shaping your future so it flows in ways that inspire. Consciously, the best.
Woohoo.
Are you liking that, Karen?
Yeah, a lot.
Curiously, the best way to understand who you are and where you're headed is to go backward from the world around you into your psyche. That is, from the outside in. This is an initial insight into finding and mastering your purpose in life. It starts by taking a look at your world and your place within it to see how your life is actually unfolding. You and your world are an integrated whole, a complex phenomenon unfolding in real time. You are not a separate entity floating in some cosmic ocean. You are bound to this world, and for that matter, you are bound to the entire universe, and the entire universe is bound to you. You co-create your world while your world co-creates you in return. In terms of integral theory, you are tetra arising, because you create your life based on your intentions and behavior, while the world around you creates you based on shared culture and communal systems. These are the four quadrants of integral theory and form a foundation for the ideas that construct integral purpose. Another way of saying this is you can spend as much time as you like identifying your core values, contemplating your passions, and itemizing your skills and abilities. But such efforts alone are ineffective in figuring out your purpose in life. This is because those efforts are partial at best and can easily be misdirected towards areas of your life where either they don't apply or aren't particularly helpful. That's not to say that self-reflection isn't important, it is, but the conclusions need to be applied in ways where purpose is actually showing up in your life. Until there is clarity on that front, intentions can flounder on the rocks of reality. The point is, what you're doing now, today, has much to inform your future because it reveals the contours of where your life is headed. These are the paths you are taking, and those paths you are not following. Looking at life from this perspective, that is, your long-term directions, allows you to make more sense of who you are and where your life is at and what your life is all about. From the initial vantage point, you can see what's working, what's not, and what's missing. Integral purpose provides the framing for this awareness, so you can orient your life in ways more suitable to yourself and others, and even chart entirely new directions. Notice that we've been talking about purpose in a plural sense. Areas of your life, contours of your life, long-term directions, various ways, even tetra arising. This is because you don't just have a single purpose in life. You have many. Indeed, as you will discover as you delve into integral purpose, you may have dozens of purposes. But before you become baffled by this, integral purpose actually provides a simplifying framework that posits that all your purposes in life, from maintaining your sanity to making a living, from falling in love to helping your neighbor, actually show up in 6 dimensions. And those 6 dimensions reveal the fullness of your existence. As you will see, purpose shows up in 6 fundamental ways called the 6 dimensions of purpose, which collectively lay out the paths available to live your life, paths that are surprisingly pre-given. The 6 dimensions of purpose are a map that provides the substrate, the underlying structure for how your life will unfold, because they reveal the directions in life in which you are headed. These 6 dimensions are an interpretation and expression of the meta map that is integral theory, hence integral purpose. Does all this sound a bit much? Well, stay the course. This introduction simply sets out the scope of this book. What you will discover in these pages is a straightforward, intuitive understanding of how you can use integral purpose to live a more whole life. Along the way, you will be exposed to integral theory, but that is only to help you more easily grasp the nature of purpose and how to use it to get what you want out of life. The reason that the 6 dimensions of purpose reveal the fullness of your existence, including what's happening now and what's possible going forward, is that purpose in life is a developmental structure stage embedded in your psyche and revealed by your actions in the world. It is a higher order psychological construct that has real-world connections and consequences. Structure represents a particular way of organizing and perceiving reality, while a stage denotes a level of complexity or consciousness that an individual or system has reached in their developmental journey. It is developmental because structure stages change and evolve as you do. Furthermore, the structure stages of purpose show up in 6 overlapping and interpenetrating dimensions, which influence and support one another. These structure stages of purpose are always there, always available, and reinforce one another, which is why they are referred to as dimensions. Because these 6 dimensions of purpose are inherent in the human condition, knowing how to use them effectively can be considered a type of intelligence from the perspective of the theory of multiple intelligences. And as a line of development in integral theory. Indeed, as a higher order psychological construct, purpose in life might well be considered a meta-intelligence, combining several other intelligences to make sense of yourself and your world. As a line of development, integral purpose asks the question, what should I do with my life? This is exciting because integral purpose can clearly show you how to change your reality so you can live a life that is more meaningful, significant, and fulfilling. In short, ask yourself what you should change in order to live a happier life so that you are engaging the world in ways that more closely reflect your best story of who you are, that reflects more closely your true nature, and more fully leverages your circumstances in life. All this points to changes in your life. Those changes might be minor or grand, but the truth of your existence is that you are constantly changing. You are not now the same person you were when you first woke up this morning. New cells have grown in your body. New dendrites have formed to connect your brain's neurons in new ways. Your thoughts have impacted your behavior, and your behavior has influenced your world. Integral purpose embraces this constant change because purpose in life is evolutionary. That is, purpose changes and evolves as you develop into a fuller expression of your potential. In certain ways, integral purpose is a maturity model, but it also acts as a becoming model, that reveals the way to go beyond what is conventionally considered a successful life. This is about a life well lived, bringing profound satisfaction and equanimity for being who you are and what you do. Integral purpose finds a home in humanistic psychology because it takes a holistic approach towards understanding your needs, wants, and desires, while also pointing to areas of personal growth where you can reach greater potential, be it to express your talents, share unconditional love, or help solve the world's wicked problems. So why has no one until now looked at purpose in life as a structure stage embedded in human nature? The short answer is because stages are not readily seen when you or anyone is within them. That is, the stages, or in this case, dimensions, are mostly transparent because at the level of simply living your life, they are simply there. The 6 dimensions of purpose are bound with your essence, who you are right now and what you're doing. You are like a fish swimming in water. You don't know you're in water because from your perspective, that's all there ever was and ever will be. In this way, purpose in life is a deep structure embedded in the fabric of who you are. It's so deep, so core to who you are in the world, both internally within your own thinking and externally in how the world shows up for you, that it is habitually not noticed as you go about living your life. That's because you are living life naturally, constantly making decisions based on current circumstances while leaning on your biological and cultural programming. It's only when you step back and take a conscious look at purpose and how it is showing up that it enters your awareness. When you do that, you're taking purpose out of the background and putting it front and center. You are able to see what's really working well and what areas of your life require additional attention. The 6 dimensions of purpose become more real, and you can ponder them to see how and where they touch your heart and soul. Once that deep structure is made visible, it changes everything. It allows you to see who you are, who you really are, your hopes, fears, and dreams, the actual phenomenology of your lived life, the experience of being you, the phenomenon of what it means to be living a unique life and continually evolving into a fuller version of yourself. I'm almost done. Most people live their lives on automatic. They are unaware of these structure stages and how they set the rhythms of life. You might set a direction in your life, for example, by taking on a particular job or getting married, then pursuing it daily, yearly, and perhaps for decades. You create ever deeper grooves in the story of your life. Often those grooves work well, but sometimes they don't. Or they are limp and uninspiring because they aren't reflecting the deeper sense of who you are. Presencing purpose allows you to reveal those grooves, which at times can be so deep they obscure an honest appraisal of what's actually going on with your life and why. That is the focus of part 2 of this book, revealing the grooves that purpose in life has already laid down, and then reflecting and planning for any shifts in direction that can improve the quality of your life. Part 1, then, is focused on the theory of integral purpose. It provides an in-depth look into purpose in life, including how purpose has dimensionality and is embedded in the fabric of existence. You will see how purpose is a meta-intelligence, a higher-order psychological construct manifesting in 6 dimensions within a structure stage framework, and how your worldview and level of consciousness shape your interpretation of purpose. Part 2 takes a detailed look at each dimension of purpose and how it shows up in your life. You will have the opportunity to rethink and brainstorm where your life is headed in order to live a more purposeful life, fully integrated with your core self and the world around you. Integral purpose then reveals the outlines of your life and establishes what's not just possible, but actually immediately feasible for you to change. You have the opportunity to write a new and improved story of your life and flesh out what that looks like. Integral purpose allows you to construct a more complete story about who you are and what you're up to in the world. You will have a clear sense of how to enact an inspiring vision of your future. you might end up telling multiple stories about who you are as you discover purpose in all 6 dimensions. And by combining those stories, you can live into a bigger, grander vision of who you are. Integral purpose is premised on the understanding that each of us is a beautiful cosmic entity, an expression of the universe, imbued with agency to chart a life's journey that no one else has ever been on or ever will be. Knowing your many purposes in life, and perhaps even creating an all-encompassing life purpose, is part and parcel of being a whole human being. The purpose of integral purpose is to help you create flow so that you are living a life that more beautifully and naturally expresses your deepest nature and highest potential. This is a new and exciting way of conceiving purpose in life. Let the journey begin.
Ooh,
That's-
zowie, zowie. I want to read that book. When's it done?
Yeah, count me in.
yeah,
I
when it's
love that integral purpose has a purpose. That just really spoke to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you
So-
want to manage this, William?
Oh, I know. I had some discussion questions. Yeah, let me share those briefly. Right back here. For discussion. So what I'd like to hear are, what's your experience when writing about integral? And whatever you've done in that regard. How much integral knowledge have you or should be assumed? And is writing for integral
Huh.
a silly thing to do to such a small audience?
It's a great question.
Well, I have a place to jump in and a fair amount of comment, but is writing for integral a silly thing to do? Not at all. I would, but I'd like to go back to you, what you said toward the beginning, where I love where you put the 8 stages that we have defined and outlined where your audience was. And it just seems obvious to go for where your largest audience would be, which is much of orange and green, a bigger market. And I would bracket the rest of the teal and turquoise. I mean, your biggest market is going to be orange and green anyway. So that allies with my spontaneous answer to another question, which was how much integral do you presume? Presume none. Maybe they've heard the term. Maybe they've had maybe they've had enough to be curious. But if this, and just having read your previous book, I would say this is your audience, the bigger market, a big chunk of orange and green. This is your largest market anyway. And I think that's where your work is already addressing. So don't assume anything but curiosity and a bit of an open mind.
Well,
Start
so
from the foundations.
Yeah,
And you do that already in your introduction, I think.
well,
I really like the introduction. I think it will speak to Orange and Green's quest for self-improvement and personal growth. So I think that the way you wrote the beginning of the introduction will go toward that pretty well. It's not too integral jargony, so it shouldn't confuse people because they don't know the jargon.
Well, that's what I'm concerned about, because I do talk about levels of development there and stage structures and things like that. And I'm wondering if for a lot of people they go, like, I remember the first time I came across integral, which is around 2004, and it didn't make any sense to me. and I was working on a PhD at the time. It didn't make any sense to me. And it wasn't until almost until 2012 when I sat down with Sex Ecology and Spirituality and read that all of a sudden I understood it. And I don't know, so something happened, something changed in me between 2004 and 2012, where cognitively or developmentally or something, I was ready for integral. And
Yeah.
I'm concerned that, here, well, I just don't know, how much to really assume and how much to play up integral or play down.
Once you get
Yes.
to orange, people will believe in development because there's that natural orange arrogance to think that they've developed themselves to be better than the riffraff, right?
Hmm.
So
Also,
I just the concepts will go over well. You just don't want to be too jargony about it, right?
Hmm.
I know when I use it, I often uh, try to avoid almost all of the jargon because
Yeah.
it turns people off, right? And it feels like we're doing this inside club, right?
Mm-hmm. But I think I get your point, Barbara, that if you're at Orange, you're curious about ideas that you don't really fully understand. So you
Right.
might you still might be attracted to this. Oh, I'm going to learn something new here.
right.
Yeah,
Also,
no, I
orange.
think it's going to be very attractive to Orange, what you've written.
Mhm.
Also, orange gets evolution. So just put in general terms of evolution, they'll get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Jane?
I think Bet had her hand up first, actually.
So
That,
my question is this word for is writing for integral, because that if you're talking about the community of people who love going to integral meetups, that's a tiny little group of people. And I think if that's what that word means, which I'm using this annotation thing. Do you see this yellow?
yes.
I think that's the thing. If you're writing for the inside baseball crowd that go to conferences for integral, then you're going to have the tiniest little bitty market. So that's what that's my thought there.
So the question is, does the introduction sound too much as if it is for integral and not
No.
for, it doesn't?
Sounded like any person who wants to grow and live a fabulous, exciting, meaningful, purpose-filled life.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, that's my takeaway.
Toward
Thank
the
you.
end, it might get a little bit cultish, but your first half of your introduction felt neutral in that way and shouldn't be unattractive to folks that aren't among the cult.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I would wonder, I guess it's hard for me to know if it is too integrally, spoken, because I'm looking at it with eyes that have a working knowledge of it. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on anything. And so I've been in this question myself because I tend to write for people who are not well versed in it. And so I'm always trying to find ways to couch it in such a way that it doesn't blow somebody away, but at the same time that they start to get it. And so I wrote something on integral ethics, which I'm presenting at a convention, Unity convention, in June. And so I did it for our students in our course, and I presented it, and then they asked, "Oh, would you do this at convention?" I said, "Well, people at convention are going to have to understand that if they're coming to this, they need a kind of a working knowledge about spiral dynamics, kind of cultural development, and the four quadrants, and oh yeah, that'll be fine." So I've put in some introductory pieces to it, to try to make sure that everybody who shows up doesn't just kind of go, well, I don't have no idea what this is. But it's a great question to ask, if we want a larger audience, then how do you write for that larger audience without just, scaring everybody away? And if you'll notice Ken's books, now I haven't read all of his books, I will admit, but when I read Grace and Grit, or Grit and Grace, I can't remember. You'll notice he goes back and he explains little things throughout, even though it's a story of what happened, with his wife. He puts on these little pause moments where he explains about 4 quadrants or whatever. And I thought he did such a great job with that. And so it's like, how can we insert this stuff in such a way that it's not too jargony, it's not too cerebral, it has some life to it. And, I'm also writing a book that I want to look at each one of the memes and describe it in such a way that people can see the evolutionary movement. And the only way I've learned how to do that is to have stories that tell about it, And in fact, if you remember, if any of you are, well, I'm dating myself here, but back in the Rocky and Bullwinkle days, where they had Sherman the dog and his pet boy, and they'd get into the Wayback Machine and go to different time periods. So I talk about that. And okay, let's get in the Wayback Machine and go back to those times and actually describe it in such a way that people get a taste for the culture then, but then go into how it affects us today or whatever. So I think there's a good way to do it. You have a lot. I really loved your 4 quadrants of writing. That is just brilliant. And then looking at the audience, like how many from here? Probably none, maybe some here. It's really very, very well thought out and a good map for us to kind of follow. I love that you call purpose a meta-intelligence. And that's, you've got me thinking here, which is really, really good. And, that whole idea of continuing to evolve into a fuller expression of who we are, I think that can be the thread that can really, I think everyone can sort of see that we're growing, we're developing, we're becoming more. And that's a great kind of perspective to write it from. But yeah, really good, great stuff. Thank you. Very thought-provoking here.
I'll have to look at Grace and Grit and to see how Ken explains key concepts in a little piece. Because I was debating whether in the body of the book, and I'm not sure yet how to do this, whether I shouldn't have like a colored out section that says, okay, here's a little primer on the 4 quadrants, and this is what the levels of development are. This is what types are, or whatever. Or should I just have it flowing more smoothly throughout? And I still haven't figured that out.
If I could just add here, and then I'll let someone else. The way I have found to do that I have found really helpful is to not to try to explain it all, but just to say what it is, and then address the topic through that. And so when I did that with ethics, we looked at what are the subjective aspects. What are our personal values that could get in the way or help us to grow in our ethical behavior? What are some of our behaviors, and what are some of our cultural traditions that are undergirding some of the ethical or unethical behavior? And then finally getting to the social systems. And so while it's good to explain what those 4 quadrants are, I think it's a lot more effective to use them in your discussion, And Cindy Wigglesworth is one that kind of showed me this, where she said, well, I did a whole thing on racism and I divided the group into 4. And this group went and talked about their internal values and how it contributed to racism. And these ones, their talked about their personal behaviors. These ones looked at cultural, and these ones looked at the social systems, which is often the only thing we're looking at, or a big part of it. And when they all came back and reported, she was able to say, do you see how all of these are intertwined? That my personal values and my personal behaviors are directly connected to the cultural traditions. And everybody just kind of had their mind blown. So I learned something from that. It's like use the 4 quadrants in order to explain your story or what you're talking about in a bigger way. So,
Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
Karen.
I think I was next. Yes. Yes, I love this. I love what you're doing. I read your previous book. This is how Integral will escape from our beautiful little ghetto and go out into the wider culture, the mass culture by osmosis with books like this. I'm seeing this, plus in the context of your previous book, this is for people who don't know much yet, but are curious, are open, and are kind of in the mainstream culture. That's just where you're starting from. That's your experience. That's who you're used to writing for. I am awed again by the lucidity and clarity of your writing. A lot of people have had to work very, 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 very hard to get to that, and you just seem to do it naturally. But now on the useful, the constructive comments, I hope this is constructive. I was mentally editing. I have an itchy editorial finger. While I was listening to your words flow, I was thinking this could be streamlined, this could be tightened, this is redundant, this could be worked back into that. So I'm already kind of imagining if I were ghostwriting this or co-writing it with you, how I would say, okay, this can be half the length, kind of aim for half the length. And mention concepts, mention just enough to get the reader curious. And then maybe I'm just kind of speaking out loud here. Maybe you could do one of those where you end this intro by saying, and then in chapter 1, we will cover this. In chapter 2, we'll cover this. You can mention a few of the concepts like quadrants. We'll explain that in chapter 4 and why that, and plug it right into one of your whammy, how this will change your life for the better. Because you express how this can help you live your best life. You come up with some superb images for that. So I would not try to explain things in this, but structure it, plug them in so that you pique their curiosity. Oh, now I'm really eager to know more. When I get to chapter 4, I'm going to get to know more about quadrants. And I mean, this could there's still a little assembly required, but not that much. So I'm just really eager to see where this is going to go.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, no, because I haven't written the body at all.
Right. And then we always have to go back and completely rewrite the introduction after we've finished each draft, actually. But this is a very promising start. And I don't know if we have time for this. I'm curious about how hard you work to get your writing to this level. Does this just flow out of your fingers like this, or do you work at crafting sentences and paragraphs?
Yeah, well, I like to rewrite. This is probably this is like the 3rd time I've gone through, and every time to tighten it up or add stuff or whatever.
And go ahead. I'm also curious about your experience in publishing your first book, but maybe we save that for another episode where we focus more on distribution and publishing.
Yeah,
I need a big.
We only have 8 minutes left, and I immediately have to go to teach a yoga class immediately. So can we hear from Roshana, just because we haven't heard from her yet today, and then Barbara.
Thanks. Well, I wanted to agree with Karen. I just, right around the time, just to make this really short, I'll skip all the, oh my God, I was so on board. I can't wait to read this book. But right around the time that Karen went, wow, and she was like, oh my God, that was the best introduction I've ever heard in my life. It felt like, and I was agreeing with her in that moment. And then it went on and on and on. And I just felt, no, that should be in the first chapter or the second chapter or whatever. And just like what Karen just said now, yeah, you can allude to those things, but it was like way too much. You sold me. I wanted to get to the book. And I worry too that people don't read the introduction and then they lose
Mm.
all of that explanation of what you're talking about. They don't ever see it. And then they
Mm.
get to your book and they're like, what the fuck is he talking about? I don't know, whatever. So super crazy. Love the intro. Right about to the point where Karen just went, oh my God. And and I was like right
that
with
point?
her. Yeah. And then yeah, just like what she just said, maybe touch those points, but in chapter 1 and chapter 2 and chapter 3, like that. I think that's brilliant. I agree.
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, Barbara. Oh,
You're
on mute.
muted.
My editor ears perked up in a couple places. There were places where shorten it. You already said that, right? And then there were a couple of places where working a lot at flying under the radar with folks that either know nothing about integral or don't like it. Words that I would never have used at that particular location. So, but what I was thinking about is your question: do I do and quadrants in action, or do I do a presentation of quadrants? And as a technical editor, the thing I've discovered is that what you need to do, there is nothing more annoying than not being able to find the page that has the diagram of the 4 quadrants. It doesn't need to be in the text anywhere. It can be in Appendix 1, right? But not to be
Appendix.
able to open it every time and find it and find the definitions has people throwing the book away. And
Ah,
and I will say that I have also discovered that I have developed an aversion to hearing, oh, there are 6 things, and it'll be chapter 6 before you hear about what those 6 things are. So if you're going to do an introduction, that list of 6 things damn well better be there, or I'm going to burn your book. And this is just a personal pet peeve, right? But we're becoming more and more that way in our media culture. That
Yeah.
I'll you open the newscast and they tell me that they're going to tell me something about something, and then 3 minutes in they tell me again they're going to tell me something about something. They could have just told me, right? So I think that it's important to have those in nice little bite-sized pieces that people can see them easily, find them easily.
Right.
And then I love the idea of using them then in action.
Mhm. Thank you.
If I could just add something here. So when you're looking at who's your audience, and you've done a great breakdown of looking at who that would be, the next question that I typically would ask, and Karen's been on a call with me where we've done this, is what keeps them up at night? What keeps your reader up at night? And how is your book going to address that? What transformation are you promising these people that from the moment they pick up your book till they get to the end? Where are they going to be at the beginning? Where are they going to be at the end? And that can really help to corral our thoughts when we're looking at that, who the main part of our audience is going to be. So those are great questions to ponder. What keeps them up at night? How's this book going to address that?
Right.
Another quick thought on audience, and that is orange is so ugly in its manifestation in Western society today that I think a lot of healthy blue people have trouble moving on because they can't see any models that they would go to, particularly in corporate worlds and stuff. There's just not a lot of good models. And I'm thinking there's a need for folks at Blue who are at the transition and just can't figure out where to go. So you may be able to actually pull folks at Blue who are ready to get into this self-authored space to begin to also bring them along, and it would be an incredible gift to people.
Yeah, that might be a different book.
I'm not sure, because Blue, a lot of Blue is about meaning in life, more so certainly than Orange, right? It's meaning in a more confined sense, but folks that are ready to move on from Blue, who can then see a picture of meaning in a much broader sense, and how you expand your meaning, how you fine tune your meaning. That's something that Exit Blue may be ready for.
Good point.
All right, Exit Blue, everyone. Let's get someone to sign up for next time. Actually, let me end this.
Point.
All right, thanks everyone, and come back next time for more. Yay!
Yay!